Hello, everyone, and welcome back to CappingTV and our coverage of the Overwatch Open Division Australian version of this whole shebang. I am Geo Phoenix, and with me is Cyberwaste as we are coming into the grand final of this whole tournament. It is New Era going up against Paradigm Shift and Cyber. Paradigm Shift, what a story for them today.
Oh yeah, if you want a Cinderella run or a Cinderella story, you will see a pretty compelling one being brewed throughout this bracket. They were knocked out extremely early by this very team. They were knocked out by New Era very early on in the bracket, and throughout the last little while, Paradigm Shift have been just running roughshod through the lower bracket. I believe only dropping one or two maps in the process.
Yeah, it seems that they haven't dropped all that many, and they've had a very long day having to play 3 series back to back to back. And now for the fourth and their biggest test. As you mentioned, New Era were the ones to put them down into that lower bracket, but now we are into the grand final. It's a best of 7. Anything can really happen, and with how momentum has been for Paradigm Shift, anything can. I was really not sure how this one is going to go.
No, definitely not. To give you guys a little bit of context, New Era are only one map, have only one map against them in their entire run, and they are still on the upper bracket. While Paradigm Shift, they were knocked out by New Era 3 maps to 1 in round number 3, and then had to basically run the gauntlet from round 4 onwards. They played Forgiver on stream earlier and won 3 maps to 2, so I had docked them an extra map when it was unnecessary. Then their next game against a team that has a different name here, but it was High Roller Gaming, I believe. It was 3 maps to 0. And then the last game that you had on stream, Give Us Blizzbox, were their opponents, and they won 3 maps to 1. While New Era, they've coasted extremely easily over the last couple of days. They beat Paradigm Shift 3 maps to 1, knocked the Blizzbox crew down 3 maps to 0, and now they meet once again. And because of the upper brackets, New Era have 1 map to their name, so they only have to win 3 maps, and Paradigm Shift have to win the whole 4 in this first 4 set.
Yeah, it's going to be a long run for them, but it all starts on Lijiang Tower. It's going to be the same map pool, the same order that we saw in the previous series. It's just one more added on top of that, and it's going to be the same things. We're probably going to see a lot of the same maps because of how things have kind of shaped out. Starting out on Lijiang, we're just waiting for both teams to be ready in the lobby, and we should be able to get this grand final underway.
Indeed, we're just waiting for the ready signals to be exchanged. It'll be New Era in the blue and Paradigm Shift in the red. And to clarify, now that we have time, the full map pool, we start off with the control discipline, which will be either Lijiang Tower, Nepal, or Oasis. Then hybrid, we have Hollywood, Numbani, and Agedvald. For assault, we have Paris, Hanamura, and Temple of Anubis. For escort, Watchpoint, Gibraltar, Junkertown, and Rado. And then for a 5th map, we basically just use whatever was left over from control. And then we start the process again with hybrid, following that, and then assault, should we require it. Two teams, include the broadcast team, have called the ready, and both teams have basically exchanged pleasantries and given their intent.
Yeah, we should be able to get this one underway. All the readies are set, and let's get this show on the road. Lijiang Tower, we saw it in the previous series. Paradigm Shift being very proficient with the 3-3 style, especially when it was on the control center, and it was also able. And as I say that, it is going to be the control center right away. But have to see if New Era is going to be a different beast for them to wrangle, because as you mentioned, New Era were the ones to drop Paradigm Shift into that lower bracket. See if they've got some interesting tools to kind of deal with what Paradigm Shift want to be bringing to the table, because we've seen a lot of 3-3 on this map. One hero that I think I saw Lush hovering over for a fraction of a second before we're able to get some heroes shown, which could very well be a key figure should it be picked up. It's the Mei on this map specifically.
Yeah, it's one of the few times where you will see a Mei on the initial break. You only usually see them for stalling tactics. But we'll wait and see, because we will slowly have things revealed to us. The assembly phase is now complete, and well, don't take these hero picks all too seriously until the gates come down. But we'll run you through your lineups. On the side of New Era in the blue, we have Don, Soggy, Penny, Special Kid, Lush as Slim Jim, and in the red on the side of Paradigm Shift we have New Ho Chi Lee, which is rather exotic with a full Korean name, Orang, Mighty Boy, Brock, and Ziff. And 3, 2, 1, the gates are down, and it looks like we have shifted into the triple tried and true.
Yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary, or at least for this map in particular. To see how this one plays out. The very initial gambit is going to be very important. A good charge down onto Penny. Is forced into a very defensive standpoint, as New is actually taking a decent amount of damage, but a lot of it is being returned in kind of good opening positioning here for the side of Paradigm Shift. They get a good kill onto Soggy, but it gets returned immediately onto New. Horang is going to be the next one to fall. Nice there for the side of New Era, getting a couple of kills on themselves. But now that the point is available, the fight is going to move over to the center of the map, but it looks like it's going to go eventually in favor of Paradigm Shift as they get those key kills when they needed it and roll through with that momentum.
And Slim Jim actually had gotten ejected and staggered a tiny bit, so that will give a little bit more percentage to the side of Paradigm Shift. But now we might see a rerun of what we did see earlier, basically Paradigm Shift putting the foot down and not letting go. And that is rallies in stereo, and Ho Chi Lee will eat up a delicious Graviton Surge. Thank you very much for keeping up a balanced diet. Penny will get the superiority over you in the right-arm race. There is the Graviton Surge from Zip, and the Big Bang that followed from Ho Chi Lee did not claim any frags, but we are going back and forth in terms of manpower on their own, but the heroes they're taking out might be of more value, and it looks like the full-on hang-on effort is going in for Paradigm Shift, and it's proven to be quite fruitful.
Yeah, it's working out quite well for them. Even though they are losing members, the point is being sold out for quite a while, up to over 50% at this stage. They are still losing members. We does mention D-Mech slip, so that's going to be a nice one for them, but throughout all of this, it is going to end up as a shifting of power in favor of New Era, and now it's time for Paradigm Shift to try and make their way back towards the point. They don't have any ultimates to work with, but on the defensive side, they've got some really powerful ones to work with, especially defensively. Special Kid and Don with those support ultimates can really stall out for quite a while, and Penny, should they get into that right situation and just get right behind that shield, can stun out an offense before it even gets started. Here comes the rally up, the slam goes down, doesn't really get anyone from either side. New is going to be the first one to go down. Lush, really high charge, and is just going to burn through the side of Paradigm Shift, and they just completely shut them out.
And that is what, basically, pulling the drawstring of the bag and then just shuffling them all together, and Don will get the better of Ho Chi Lee, another stagger. It's always been a bit of a science to Demon Staggers, and well, there is a Graviton Surge from Zip. They're really wanting to try and break this before it gets out of hand, and Soggy going down early on could be their ticket in, and New has found a new calling with the giant rocket hammer and Brock's assistance. It looks like New Era have just been completely decimated. They folded right under the hammer of New.
Yeah, it looked like they were going to be able to set up for a very long defense, but that Graviton and just the follow-up from the side Paradigm Shift was just way too powerful, cleaning them up. And now they're in a pretty decent position themselves. Sure, they don't have too many in the way of ultimates, but on the other side, not looking at too much either. We've got a mech explosion on both sides, an Earth Shatter. Here comes the explosion coming out. Oh, Slip does manage to take down two. That's a massive start to the fight, taking down the support, and also the Zarya. Don is going to be returned in the resulting explosion in in response. But the fight is already way too much in favor of New Era, and they are just going to go back into stalling tactics. New is going to be the next one to go down. It's just up to the Lucio to try to get any kind of stalling out. And it looks like it is going to be put almost over into overtime, but they are stalled out just short before it is flipped back over.
And, well, if you're Paradigm Shift, you're a bit bummed that you couldn't hang on, but you'll be happy with the progress. But might be getting put under the pump, especially with what New Era does have to hand, and that's Soggy doing the call to arms. And keep an eye on Lush and when the Graviton Surge is actually used. And speaking of which, there it goes. There is the sound barrier in response, and a big Earth Shatter.
Yeah, managed to put so many people to the ground, but a good return Graviton, and they managed to take down before the Transcendence can really take into effect. So really nicely done there. It is now into overtime. Paradigm Shift need to be able to get onto the point. Penny's going to be the next one to go down. Good play in favor of Paradigm Shift. Another one, the explosion doesn't really get anything out of it. Slip is going to get taken, and they are not going to be able to help out with the rest of it all. Point has been flipped over, and it is going to be the first point of this map going over to Paradigm Shift after a very back and forward map.
Soggy really wanted to get the touch to keep the point alive for them on the Doomfist, but just got scared away by all that damage and perhaps getting the Seismic Slam not lined up to touch the point proper. So just a bit unfortunate there. But now we move on to the night market, where we see a lot of either the traditional triple or we see a lot of DPS centric setups now because of the way these heroes are set up and what their effectiveness is. And look at New Era just sort of sampling the board from the looks of things. We have a bit of a way back machine going on. New Era going with a bit of a dive setup.
Yeah, and going up against that 3-3 from the side of Paradigm Shift, they are very comfortable playing that style, but Soggy is going to be one of those key figures on that Pharah, trying to knock people around, trying to disrupt the setup from this very large unit of Paradigm Shift as they make their way towards the point. As Soggy's going to get the first kill immediately. As I was saying, Soggy is going to be the key target. He's going to be able to get that first kill and maybe give themselves a good opportunity towards the point. First tick of the point might go over to Paradigm Shift, but a dive in from the Winston does end up costing his life, as Petty's going to be the first one to go down. And Ziff is just starting to burn people with this Xayah. They were forced to come towards the point, and that's exactly where this Paradigm Shift lineup wants them.
Yes, indeed. If any of the members actually get staggered during this juncture, it's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call, perhaps a retooling for New Era, but Soggy does have Dawn as the Mercy in the back pocket. It does have the Barrage to hand too. So if Ho Chi Lee can get ejected or basically having the defense matrix essentially nullified, that will give a huge avenue for New Era to try to pounce. And with Special Kid having the nano as well, keep an eye on how a lot of these ultimates are landed. Lush just walks in a big EMP.
Yeah, managed to hit several members. The Matrix did come out, but it wasn't enough. Mighty Boy's going to be the first one to go down. They do manage to take down Soggy, but not at the... Well, it's at the cost of pretty much everyone else. Really solid engagement there from Lush. Nicely done with that Sombra to completely dismantle that defense. They are going to be able to get themselves control of the point, but already 50% in favor of Paradigm Shift.
With a little change too, they're on 52, and the Southern Paradigm Shift just basically have to wait for everybody to reconvene and just recalibrate themselves. But keep an eye on Lush and the Sombra play, just trying to isolate certain targets and just rattle the opposition down with the SMG to hand and the hacking that they can actually do it. Horang has done the call to arms and is rallying everybody up on Paradigm Shift to keep everybody topped up and fighting fit, and they're definitely in a good position to do that with them being on the point. Bob has entered the fray and hasn't really gotten all that much, but is a big threat with a big loud gun. You do not want to get in a tussle with that, gentleman. But Slim Jim has had Bob sadly cease. So despite the stalling tactics going on from the side of New Era, Paradigm Shift have started commandeering the point for themselves, and Soggy has got the better of Brockus and Zenyatta, and the big EMP on the other side will cause Paradigm Shift to almost completely disperse.
Yeah, really nice engagement there. Yet again, Lush just completely shutting down that defense. It was looking pretty good for the side of Paradigm Shift. They managed to negate a lot of the engagement from utilizing Bob and also that minefield, but we saw yet again the Sombra EMP being the big impact play up against these 3-3 compositions. And it's even going to force out an adjustment in compositions if it's actually having to move over to the McCree because of the DPS coming out from this new era lineup. They need to have something to deal with it. They need something to contest that Pharah in the skies. And they are going to be able to come back into this play as they do. Oh, great engagement there from Penny. See if they can get too much more out of that. As actually we do have the Winston diving onto Slip. He is forced all the way back. This rally up is helping out, keeping everyone nice and topped up as they make their way towards the point.
Slim Jim has put the Viper to work and taken out Brock. And Hochi Lee's been ejected, but Don, a big piece to this potential attack, is no longer amongst the pieces on the board. And Paradigm Shift have forced the opposition in New Era away just enough to stop the progress at 94%. And now we are in 1 to 1.5 fight territory according to the totals. We could see at least at most 2 more fights in this map.
Probably a big scrambling style of fight as actually we do have Lush on the backside, does get caught out. A special kid does get the sleep down onto Ziff as they're going to get cleaned up before anything can really get started. Overtime has been ticked up. They need to be able to get onto the point as they do manage to get that wick back up again as it looks like New Era are starting to get the kills, but the point is still in favor of Paradigm Shift. They do flip it over to themselves. They're getting more and more kills, and now it's onto the stall tactics, but nice dissuasion there from Penny and the rest of the team, and they secure themselves the night market. And Cyber, we are going to the gardens.
Yes, indeed. And well, I can't really call this a tale of 2 different teams because it was tooth and nail for both of them, but definitely 2 different setups, especially Slipjip using Bob because, well, partially because I have a soft spot for Bob, but just how much disruption a big Omnic Butler can be for especially holding on to or just being a general distraction while trying to commandeer a point. And well, just doing a little masterclass there for how Ash can be put into the fray. But we have the dive setup coming out on both sides as a matter of fact, but Ziff and Lush will be your 2 impact players, as has been the theme throughout this set. The Sombras being huge parts.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Soggy gets the opening kill, knocking Brock right off that map. And even New is going to get pushed away as well. Soggy does get killed in response thanks to Horang with those air-to-air rockets. But throughout all of this, the position is going to go in favor of New Era just for the moment, as they are going to be able to dissuade Paradigm Shift from making their way towards the point as they get first tick in their favor.
Yes, and well, the side of Paradigm Shift will try to keep this pressure up and try to get them to break, but they can't really do that without their tech. New will be a casualty early on in this fight amongst the bridge, and well, it looks like one of the members of Paradigm Shift tried to get the touch. The Special Kid has put the Nano Boost onto Penny, and the Nano Boost can't do much when you are down and out and catching Z's. But it looks like that was just a minor inconvenience for New Era. They're going to keep their stranglehold on this point of the garden, and Paradigm Shift will have to reconfigure themselves. And this EMP that Ziff has to hand, it could be a huge turning point for them.
Ideally, they get high impact out of this EMP, but it could be a little bit difficult because of how spread out this defense is set up. There are some big ultimates on both sides. We have to see who is going to be able to pull that trigger and really set their team up for success. The dive goes in, the EMP does manage to hit several members, but they do end up trading kills back and forth. The missile barrage does not actually end up killing anyone, but the good response EMP on to the side of Paradigm Shift is going to help out, help New Era keep themselves in the fight. And Slip, yep, how is it pronounced yet again? I forget it each and every time I cast this game.
Toad.
Slippy, he's just managing to take everyone out as they maintain control of the point throughout all this. A lot of ultimates were expended, but in the end, New Era hold on for now.
Yes, indeed, and despite the best intentions from Ho Chi Lee. He's decided to go against it. That is the self-destruct thrown out from Slim Jim, and while it did not bear all that much fruit, it definitely did force the opposition to stand back. But that might be a little bit too much of a distraction. New Horag and Sif have claimed casualties and might have finally broken the defense of New Era. Slim Jim is the only person to reply, with Mighty Boy being forced to the hospital bed. And despite 99% being forced from New Era, it is now the time of Paradigm Shift to start their rally back. And they have got a lot of rallying to do, and not a lot to do it with.
Yeah, looking at the ultimates on both sides, a lot more in favor of the side of the New Era, but an EMP on the engagement does manage to take Sliptip out of the fight. He just ends up way over the ledge. They do manage to take down Mighty Boy as well. The EMP, well, not the EMP, well, actually, yeah, an EMP of this side of Lush is going to be utilized, but it's not going to be able to really help out all that much because the fight has essentially already been done. New Era trying to make their way towards the point. But they're losing members, they're bringing some of them back. Lush is back into the fight. The defense is kind of all over the place, as the point is almost going to be switched back over, but the Valkyrie is going to be helping out a lot. Don doing a decent amount of work. Penny and Sliptip is doing a decent amount on that front line. Hwoarang does take down Penny. He's not able to help out all that much in the long run. Nano Boost does go down on to the Winston on the point, but with not enough team around them, gets cleaned up for it. And now it's back onto stalling tactics. It's into overtime. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get too much out of this. New Era are in a really good position. They have control of the point. It is into overtime, as Paradigm Shift have to get everyone back onto this point to try and just flip it back over for themselves, because time is down to the last minute here.
Yeah, and you can tell by the composition that Paradigm Shift are now employing. They are wanting to run in single file. A big EMP from Lush will almost certainly halt this battle back from Paradigm Shift. The point was tipped over, and the flag is now planted, and New Era are one step closer to taking out Open Division.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate, because New Era come into this grand final from the winner's side of the bracket, they start this best of 7 with one map advantage. So that is technically the 2-0 start for them. They just need 2 more maps and they would have taken this whole Open Division. But Paradigm Shift, they had put up one hell of a fight. Those first 2 rounds going to 99 to 99 and then just going one way or the other. A lot of these small interactions, it's coming down to the very nitty gritty between these 2 teams.
And well, when you have a spot in the next part of the path to pro, the contenders trials, you really have to give it your all, because it's only going to get more intricate from here on out. So this would be a very giant first step for New Era, and perhaps the start of something wonderful from this region, which is constantly evolving, constantly changing, and an eye for the rest of the world. And with New Era now having 2 to their name, it'll be up to Paradigm Shift to try to stop it, and they do have the power of choice for this next map.
Yeah, it is the hybrid, and it's between Hollywood, Numbani, and Eichenwald. It looks like Hollywood is going to be the choice for the side of Paradigm Shift. We saw it in the previous series when they were up against the Blizzbucks boys. And it was an interesting map because it didn't go past first point either side. It was a full hold from Paradigm Shift, and all it needed was a single tick. I'm not sure if we'll see the same thing here, but I'm expecting some of the similar styles on defense to come through.
It's because a lot of the hybrid maps, at least in this current map, will have a similar sort of layout to a lot of the 2 CP maps, where this particular bunker composition with Baptiste, say at Orisa, and whatever DPS that you'd usually want. Usually you'd see like a Bastion or an Ashe or even a Junkrat, which we've seen employed. That bunker style is really hard to sort of unglue from their post unless it's essentially broken by a counter composition, especially with the Sombra, because there is a lot of shielding which is implemented in those types of setups.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, just waiting until we're getting into game. I believe both teams are ready as we are getting into game 2 of this series. Well, technically, kind of a game 3. We probably should do it that way just to make things a little bit less confusing for ourselves as we get into Hollywood. We haven't seen anything of that, the central area of the Wild West in the games we've had today. So I wouldn't mind if we went at least that far in this series, but I don't know. With how these defensive setups have been, it could be a bit of a tough ask.
Yes, indeed. Maybe we will see the streets phase and perhaps the giant overhang with the camera crane, which I've actually only just discovered that there was a camera crane underneath the bridge between the bank and saloon in the Wild West phase. So that's a little bit of cool information, at least for my personal reasons. But we'll reiterate again: Paradigm Shift will be your attackers, New Era will be your defenders. And we'll see if the trend continues of the bunker style composition being utilized by a defense, because it's proven to be an extremely hard nut to crack.
Yeah, we saw in the previous series Paradigm Shift trying to deal with that by going with essentially the 3-3 and just going through the side corridors, trying to get a good flank through the cafe. It didn't work for the majority of it. It was just some scramble fights towards the end that managed to get them the win. But looking at what New Era bring to the table, it's not going to be that same style. It is going to be a lot of DPS, or a reasonable amount of DPS. It's just a 2-2-2, which is a good old classic 2-2-2 style of composition.
Indeed, especially with the Winston who could dart in and out. But yeah, you do have a lot of DPS, but think of the lineup that is coming your way from Paradigm Shift at 3-3, the triple setup from Paradigm Shift. There is a lot of fat to chew through, fat being the HP in this metaphorical instance, and Paradigm Shift are a little bit spread out and might not be liking what they're seeing. They're being a little bit tentative, moving up towards the gate and out towards the point, and with Soggy basically keeping an eagle's eye overhead, you can't exactly blame them.
Yeah, probably expected to be running up against some bunker compositions, expecting to see an Orisa Shield and a Baptiste, but not seeing that. There's like, are we still going to play through with this strategy? And that is what they do. They make their way around the back, through the cafe, and back towards the point, but this long range of this Pharah is going to be a big nuisance for them to deal with. They don't have tools to kind of contest that Pharah in the skies. They are still looping around, trying to get themselves into a good situation to try and dislodge this defense, but Slip is going to be able to take down Mighty Boy right off the bat. And start for them. New was on the point, but there was no one else around them to help out, and just gets executed. That is going to force a retreat and a reset here for the side of Paradigm Shift.
That is basically the plug pulled in its entirety, and Orag is the final member to perish via the Bionade. And we're seeing a little bit of a shuffling of the guard. We're seeing Horang move to the Genji and Ziff moving to the Ash. So they've definitely seen something that screams to them, yeah, this triple comp is not going to work, in a big EMP from Lush. That'll basically black out any type of advance from Paradigm Shift for the side being, especially with Brock being turned into scrap metal.
Yeah, really nicely done. Just stuffing that attack before we can get anything done. And we look at the amount of ultimates there for the defensive side. Horang gets a good kill onto Lush, yet again stalling out this offense. They're just, well, actually, in the return, it was a good way to start this offense as they make their way towards the point. Morocco Barrage comes out, doesn't really get anything thanks to the defense matrix coming out from the Diva. They managed to take down the, well, pretty much all of that back line. Really nicely done here for the side of Paradigm Shift. A good shift in the strategy. So without, or even with all of those ultimates for the side of New Era, they really can't get it to work.
And we have seen a little bit of a shuffle. Soggy has decided to move to the Tracer. Hero you don't see as often anymore, but one that I'm happy to see. And Horang just being a real nuisance. The board extremely low actually before the healers came by to give the little bit of the heave-ho, the top up. And Lush, keep an eye on where the position is.
Brilliant sleep dart onto Penny from the engagement. Try to utilize the nano boost to just wreak havoc amongst them, but getting slept immediately. Good stalling out as they manage to get back onto the point, takes down Horang, and here comes Bob to be the big boy on the front line, as this Paradigm Shift lineup is going to be able to push through the streets. The sleep does go down onto Bob, but Brock has been taken out throughout all of that, and is not having a fun time at this state of the game, just trading kills back and forth. But the payload is going to be stored out for a little bit, as Paradigm Shift trying to get themselves positioned, as New Era are setting up a pretty decent defense here.
And if they could keep it at least at a stalemate for New Era, it's definitely going to favor them in the long run. But look at the ultimates that are actually on deck for the side of Paradigm Shifted. A big EMP actually will nail down a few, but did not get Ho Chi Lee. Did throw out the self-destruct as Soggy has been forced down, not without taking Brock out with a pulse bomb. But that is just a consolation prize in this instance. Paradigm Shift have snapped the defensive stronghold from New Era. And this payload with Mr. Glitchbot, who really wants to get to a private parking space at Goldshire Studios, is going to keep going.
Yeah, we do see Lush on that back line. Does get a lot of information, but without that EMP, is not going to be able to really make those big impact engagements. We'll probably try and take down some supports on the back line. Brock does manage to dissuade him with the Bionade, as here comes the Nano Boost, and Bob gets thrown into the mix as well. Penny and Soggy just punching people to death left and right as they're trying to hold back this offense. There's a lot of blue on that kill feed. Even though Bob is standing guard there towards the point, is not really helping out. The fight has moved beyond where he's standing, and that is where they finally lay down the hammer and just stall out this offense.
They have put up roadblock now, and it'll be up to Paradigm Shift to penetrate it. We're running into 1 minute 30, and looking at the position of the payload, Mr. Glitchbot's limousine, it's actually in a strong position more often than not for the defense, and it's going to make things a little bit more difficult than Paradigm Shift would have liked. But looking at what Paradigm Shift do have to hand, they will have a lot to play with, but Ziff will not be one of them. He's perished thanks to a pulse bomb from Soggy.
Yeah, nicely done there. Stalling out this offense. A good EMP onto that back line. They're not able to get too much more out of it, but the rest of the team is just going for the rest as they clean up that offense. With the first kill onto that, the Widowmaker. And without the Mercy, this is one of those compositions without Mercy, so you're not going to be able to have those resurrections to keep the fight going. Completely stalled out. And now we're up to down to 40 seconds left on the clock. And as you mentioned, with the positioning of this payload, it can be very awkward for them to get their way back without running into so much pressure as Hwoarang with the Nano Blade is going to slice through two members. Soggy does manage to get a kill in response, but that blade has already done its damage. The mech explosion is going to take down Brock, so nicely done there, but the fight is going pretty nicely for this offense. And actually, as I say that, they're going to end up losing more than a few, as this defense is going to be able to get back and hold the line strong with less than 10 seconds to go. The fight is done, and it's going to be a real tough ask for them to get anywhere near that payload. The loser actually does manage to get there. Does manage to get there, but does cost his life. Lush managed to get another couple of kills, as they are going to be stalled out just before the second point.
Ho Chi Lee was on the trail backward, did have the self-destructor hand, but sadly you have to really touch the payload in the mecha form, and the self-destruct sadly won't count as a person on the payload. Bob will, that won't. So the box of victory is well defined for the side of New Era. It's just outside of the jail, moving towards the second checkpoint of Goldshire Studios. They don't have to go the whole way. And unless the defense of Paradigm Shift can hold strong, we've seen it before, Mr. Phoenix, but is going to have to go around for a second time. And you're playing a new foe in terms of New Era. Sure, you played them before, but they basically gave you a really tough time the first go around. Do you think that will repeat itself?
It's very hard to say. We've seen how much Paradigm Shift has gone from strength to strength throughout their lower bracket run today. But as you mentioned, New Era, it's a different beast. Will they be able to deal with it? They are trying to set, Paradigm Shift are trying to set up that bunker defense, utilizing the Ash, as we were mentioning, well, as we're getting into this game, the Ash instead of the Bastion, it's just something that it seems like Ziff is a little bit more comfortable on that hero rather than the Bastion, and just like the team setup is more set up to play that style. But with this dive heavy composition, it could get preyed upon on those back lines.
Indeed, and a pause has actually been called by New. Wait and see whether or not it's just a spike in latency or something more ingrained for that. But a good small little note. Ziff was actually looking towards spawn with about 4 and a bit seconds left on the timer, or 3.5 seconds left on the countdown timer before the gates go down, which is the exact detonation time for the TNT, which does a big damage over time. So even though there won't be any actual damage, it will give them ult charge, which is a big tip for Ashe players that they have really utilized. Basically, getting the people that really hug the doors when they drop on the attack of these maps. Just every little advantage that you can get. Yeah.
Especially when your ultimate is such a high impact play as Bobby. Like, it's another member on the point who has to be dealt with. It's another thing that has to be dealt with. It's one thing we've talked about with this bunker style compositions, is that there are so many things that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the immortality field. You have to deal with a lot of these traps and just damage, and a lot of the shielding. You have to deal with it. Bob is just another one of those things that, if left to his devices, he will shred an entire team. But here we go, this attack is coming through. Lush is on the backline getting all of the information possible. They know where pretty much everyone is set up as they dive right in. They get onto that backline, but that immortality field is being that pesky thing. Don does manage to clear it out from afar. They're on the point. They get a little bit of a kick onto it, trying to force a response out of the defense as they are moving people left, right, and center. The healing is good here for this defensive team, but not able to force anyone down just yet, so the attack is going to continue. Penny doesn't manage to get up high into the cafe as they are just jumping left, right, and center. Slipper's actually going to lose the mech. The immortality field is going to go down as well. It's just trading numbers back and forth. Amplification matrix does go down. A good Bionade does go on to New to try and just shred down that front liner, but Cyber is just back and forth at this moment, but it looks like the defense is holding strong for now.
Yes, there is only a couple of pesky little members around. Penny's being one of them, has perished a little bit late, and Slimjip has only had to watch Soggy go down at the hands of Ho Chi Lee. And it took a lot longer than Paradigm Shift would have liked, but they can hold strong, and Ho Chi Lee now just out of the mech form is just buying time until the Diva can call down another mech. So 2 minutes and 15, and Lush will definitely know that there is a big EMP chance here. Because everybody is so tightly contested in the cafe, this could be a giant engage, and there it is, but not without Bob entering the fray.
Yeah, but Bob is not going to really be able to do too much when Soggy is just slicing and dicing everyone on that defensive side. They do get a good hack onto Slip, so he can't get the mech explosion out as they are DMech, so that is going to be the complete shutout on offense. Nicely done there from New Era. We saw it coming. You said it. That EMP is going to be that key defense dismantling tool, and it did what it said. Does what it says on the tin. The follow-up from Soggy was so good as well. And now we're into the second point, and now we can see that is where they need to get to. They need to get to that little cardboard box on the ground, and they will be able to set up a match point for themselves.
Yes, and in dominating fashion too. Ho-Chi Lee be a big piece, but Horag's actually changed off to the Brigida, so they're definitely wanting to get stuck in on the side of Paradigm Shift, and with the stun, it already sniffed out Lush, but not without getting a little bit of damage and charge down for themselves, and there goes Ho-Chi Lee throwing out the self-destruct. Only does a lot to disperse, but not a whole lot else. Lush has been put onto the casualties sheet. Zip is railed down. Don Soggy is doing the best to reply, staying up in the fight, but Ho-Chi Lee has got rid of Slim Jip, and Soggy is no more, and the slight change has given a small guiding light for Paradigm Shift, and another strong position for the cart to be put down, because there's basically a huge pair of towers that Paradigm Shift can look down on.
Yeah, as you mentioned, just setting up this defense. They do get another attack, waiting for that big MP to start up, but they're not waiting for that. They're just going to go in with the Nano Blade. Soggy managed to pick off one. Zephyr's going to be the first one to get dropped down in this fight. He's going after a lot of the tanks. A good stun there from Horang to keep him under wraps. But throughout all of that, the big impact play was just a kill in the end. So nicely done there to mitigate a lot of the damage that play was coming in with. New is going to be the next one to go down, as they are going to be forced to retreat here on defense. Lush is going to take down Brock. Never a fun time as a Zenyatta when you've got that Sombra just lurking around, and now they even have some very big, high impact ultimates to work their way through on this offense. They have to touch to stall it out just before the point. Here comes the EMP. Does a decent amount of work in shutting down a lot of those front liners. Mech Explosion does knock people around left, right, and center, but they're not able to get anyone just yet on either side. Oh, a good sound barrier keeps the team alive. Mech Explosion from the side of the blue team. It does manage to, they just managed to take down Soggy. Penny's going to be the next one to go down, and it looked like a pretty good start to the fight, but the defense holds strong. And when it gets into the nitty-gritty, the grinding fights, that is where the 3-3 reigns supreme.
Yeah, there's good longevity, and we mentioned it in a passing quip. Just so much HP to deal with, so much fat to chew through for any attacking team, but especially one that has huge burst damage with the Nano Blade and the things like that. But if it's not mitigated, if it's not dealt with quickly, it's just going to be a rough time, especially with things like Rally and Sound Barrier and Transcendence on deck. And now New Era, they are on the clock. They've got 53 seconds left, and Soggy has unsheathed the blade for now, and actually I think got a deflect off as well.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of it was distraction. Penny's going to be able to get onto the supports and clean them up. The blade was out with the nano boost, but that wasn't the big play. It did distract the Diva from helping out the rest of the team, and throughout all that, that's just how they just win the fight. It was looking pretty good on defense, but you were talking about that Nano Blade being that high impact play, but it was essentially smoke and mirrors at that point.
Master of Illusion. Always be wary of the man with the shurikens and the swords hand. And if you look at this is how a bunker is busted with a capital B. Dragon Blade to hand, sure, but the big setup there was from Lush on the Sombra, basically making everything moot and basically turn them all into sitting ducks and say, hey, Genji, go, do stuff. And that's exactly
it's the donkey what happened. Like, I've set the table, go for your life. And that's exactly what he did, cleaning them up. And it's just this very strong combo, unless you're extremely ready for it. We saw in one of the previous fights, throughout that street phase, they were able to mitigate a lot of the damages. Sure, Ziff on the Xayah did get taken down, but that was the only casualty. They were able to hold on to the mech. They were able to hold on to all their supports and their frontline. But they were able to hold on through that nano boost and the nano blade. And we saw the new era, the new era lineup after that kind of run out of steam a little bit. But when they have those big punches, they really make the most of it.
And sometimes that is basically the entire way that competitive Overwatch does tend to go. Sometimes you have to just wait for all the pieces to go into place for an entire attack, an entire plan, and then once the machine starts, if it runs smoothly, it's happy days ahead, and extremely happy for New Era indeed. They are now 3-0 up in the series because of the advantage of coming in from the upper bracket. They started with a 1-0 lead, and we have played 2 maps. They took the win on Lijiang Tower. They basically put the spotlight on Hollywood all over them, and now the rally back from Paradigm Shift will have to start here, and we are going to the Illusion in the Desert. We are going to the Temple of Anubis.
Yeah, it is match point, as you mentioned. Well, as you mentioned, Paradigm Shift they need to make the big run now. They have to essentially reverse sweep at this stage. They have to run 4 maps And it's not going to be easy because even if they do win this one, every single map for the rest of this series would be chosen by New Era, and that's going to be a rough task for them. But Temple of Anubis. We saw Hanamura earlier, so interesting that we do end up going over to this map. It does end up favoring a lot more of the longer sight lines. Bunker is still a strategy that can be run, but we do see a few more of a variation here.
Yeah, a little bit more with the multiple platforms that could be utilized, especially on the opening point. You have the main ones, Watch the Gates, and perhaps the ones that are a little bit further back for when or if the initial choke does get breached. There is a little bit more wiggle room for the side for the defense to really go to, as opposed to Hanamura, where the point itself is a little bit more closed off when you get to the point proper.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very important for the defense to get set up. They are on that high ground and not going for the Bastion style of setup. It is going to be much harder to get into those positions without the use of, say, a Symmetra or a Mei to get themselves to that high ground. But the Ashe can do it herself, so it's one of those tools, or one of the advantages of that style. And to see how this one goes. Also, the longer range of an Ashe is going to help out with these longer sight lines, but the full dive coming, or I'd say full dive, there's a lot of aggression coming out from this paradigm shift lineup as they make their way towards the point. See how this first engagement goes.
And Ziff has fallen all the way back. Did not like what they saw as they decided to go off the Widow and gone back to the Sombra, noting I would be certain what composition's being run, and a potential undoing has entered the fray, and maybe the side of New Era are not aware of things for now. And look, it's looking to be a full-blown stalemate, but it looks like New has really wanted to get into the fight. Zip has claimed the first part of this defense, and Penny actually followed suit. So all the talk that we were doing of a potential strong defense is basically dissolved under the attack of Paradigm Shift, and they have shifted things into a different gear entirely. That is a first push capture for Paradigm Shift, and it's well in the realm of possibility for the defense to not even get properly set up before Paradigm Shift could get a touch on the second point.
Yeah, and they even had to make a whole bunch of adjustments to their composition. They essentially reset on a lot of ultimate charge. The only one who is even close to halfway is Slip on the D.Va. And they are going to be in a bit of an awkward situation as ultimates are starting to get closer and closer for the offensive side of Paradigm Shift. Soggy is going to just punch Mighty Boy right into the wall. Slip is going to clean up New as well, and they're just going to roll their way through with momentum. Nicely done there on defense. They really need that fight to go in their favor before ultimates started coming online for Paradigm Shift.
Yes, and a little bit of a stretch out. Penny will finally send the mecha part of Ho-Chi Lee back to spawn. And yet again, if you could disrupt the timings like that for Paradigm Shift, the better things can actually get in order for the side of New Era, which they really need to do because of the huge reset in economy, like you mentioned in the interim. And now, despite having 5 minutes and 45, Paradigm Shift will really have to get going, and that EMP to open could be their way in.
Yeah, they only managed to hit 2, but the Nano Blade is going to be helping out in the long run. They're just going to slice through this defense and open up the point for themselves. There really isn't much on the way of the defensive side that they can actually work with. So they're going to get cleaned up. Slip is going to try and stall out for as long as possible, but it's already getting very quickly captured. It's a short point from a short walk from the spawn, but they are in a very disadvantageous position. But they're starting to get some ultimates to work with on defense as they put the Nano Boost onto Lush on the Wrecking Ball, and it's starting to work out quite nicely. But New does manage to get a couple of kills for themselves. So close to finishing off this point. New is being an absolute monster with this Winston on that front line, taking down members left, right, and center. All of those annoying ones that can be so elusive just zaps them down. This defense trying to stall out for as long as possible, trying to bleed out as much time as possible. It's not looking too good for themselves. The Mei is going to be the last one to go down. They do end up utilizing the EMP to just completely shut them down. It is going to stall out for a little bit longer, but I'm not sure how much more they can do. There it goes.
A very decent bleed, though, from the defense of New Era, but New Era did make a new enemy, and his new name is New. I tried to make the link there, but man, his Winston was just being a right terror throughout that entire attack.
It's really hard when you have to go in for the staggering defense because you're just a sitting duck each and every time. You can't have that very coordinated approach to the point. You just have to just get there. Doesn't matter how you do it or if you survive or not. Just get there for as long as you possibly can, and that just opens up the door for so much damage to go just railing across your entire team. And New was one of those one of those key figures that was just zapping everyone, especially when you try and be as elusive as possible with the Wrecking Ball, with the Lucio. Try and scale the walls, try and be in all sorts of different directions. The auto-targeting of that Tesla cannon just reigns supreme, essentially.
Yeah, and well, lightning is extremely strong in many a situation, except in hockey, apparently. But that's for another time. Anyway, we have New Era on the attack now, and second to the composition that Paradigm Shift wanted to put themselves through on the attack. We see Lush as the Sombra. Will we see a duel? No, we will not. Zippers wanted to go to the Ash, which was hinted at previously, and we'll see how this hero can actually be implemented, because there isn't that much for long range in terms of the attacking side.
Yeah, and it does seem like this is the style of defense that they do very much prefer. We saw it from a New Era in the previous round. Didn't seem to work well for them. Probably not something that they're particularly comfortable with, or just getting dismantled very quickly thanks to the engagement from New. But now that the shoe is on the other foot, it's a very similar look from both, or just the inverse from the previous round. We'll see how it goes, because we're just waiting for Lush to try and get onto that back line, on those back lines, but so far not being able to because of a lot of the clogging in. But actually does manage to get onto the point, just force out a reaction from the defense, as New is going to be forced to move around as they have to shift where the shielding comes from and where it goes, as they have to be very careful that they don't get cleaned up. Soggy is going to be the first one to go down. Slip is falling as well, as the defense holds strong, and it's a very different look coming out of it's a very different the bunker looks much better in the hands of Paradigm Shift, I will say that much.
Well, they've definitely put on a good first showing, but there is a lot of time on the clock, and once Lush gets the EMP to hand, we'll see if it can survive that next wave in logical proceedings. But New will eliminate Penny, and as the Valkyrie gets called out from Mighty Boy, the rest of the Paradigm Shift squad will do his bidding and basically eradicate a second wave of attacks from New Era. So you did mention the bunker composition is a little bit more polished, would you say, in the hands of Paradigm Shift, although we do have a little bit of a smaller sample size.
Yeah, it is a reasonably small sample size, but from the games, from what we've seen so far, Paradigm Shift seem very comfortable playing this style, especially with the Ash. Whereas on the other side, it just didn't seem as practiced. It seemed like a thing where it's like, well, we know it's the strong thing, therefore we do it, as we do have the engagement, EMP, and also the Nano Blade, as he gets cleaned up by the Riptide. So that's two ultimates just completely dismantled before you can get anything done. So nicely done on the defense there. Good positioning from Borang to get that tie into the perfect spot, and that was such a massive investment on offense from New Era. They went in with the EMP and the Nano Blade, but got completely just shut down.
And it looks like Soggy is extremely snake bit because of that now, and has moved off of the Genji and onto the Tracer instead to try and basically break this. The window of opportunity, the amplification matrix, has come out from Brock, and this is doing a good enough part, and Soggy is just trying to get the touch to try to pull the wall over the eyes of the defensive. Slim Jim has done a good part in that, taken out by the supercharger. the immortality field, and 2 members of the defense. Mighty Boy has raised one of them, but that was quickly added back onto the board thanks to Penny and the jump packs. And finally, it looks like New Era have broken the paradigm shift barricade, but more than likely, would you say New Era might be a little bit disappointed with how long that took?
It did take a while. They are down to just a dozen seconds. They will get some extra time to work with coming into the second point, but such a solid defense to bleed out as much time. Even though they did get a decent amount of time added onto their bank, they still have less time than what Paradigm Shift ended the second point with. So they have to make this as efficient as possible coming into point B, and Slip just coming in with the hero play with that mech. Without that, we wouldn't have been able to do it. As a good EMP goes in, they're able to take care of that front line, but a good immortality field, able to stall it out for long enough, but it's not going to be helping out in the long run, as Soggy's going to be the first one, well, first on the offensive side to go down, but a lot of kills in favor of New Era, but it's not looking very good because of how extended this fight is. It's looking pretty for the side of Paradigm Shift. They can stall this out rather efficiently. It's not the whole scrambling defense that we saw in the previous round. They can play it a little bit more close to the chest. They have some tools to work with, and they can make it incredibly hard for the side of New Era to get onto the point. As Earthshatter gets dropped down, doesn't really get too much out of it. Sound Barrier gets dropped as they make their way onto the point. Graviton Surge as they take down Hwoarang. They need to get more than this. They need to get so many kills at once just to get themselves some time on the point, as they manage to get a decent amount of kills themselves as they're finally able to get position on this point. But Cyber, it could be stalled out. There's probably going to be a decent amount of stall here.
If we can actually get there, the wall actually went up for Hwoarang. It went up the wrong way, and Slim Chip made Hwoarang pay for that. It was good in theory, but sadly those walls, man, sometimes they just don't work out for you. So that is a second point acquired by New Era. But the bright side for Paradigm Shift, they have a lot less time on the attack compared to themselves. 2 minutes and 40 in the back pocket compared to the Paradigm Shift's 4 minutes, excuse me, and 35 seconds. And now, as the assembly phase comes to a close, we will be about 45 seconds away from the gates going down, and the team compositions will start to take shape.
Yeah, and having that extra 2 minutes is going to be ideally massive for the side of Paradigm Shift. It is still possible for New Era to bring this all back and just clean up the map for themselves and take this whole tournament for themselves. But this defense from the side of Paradigm Shift we saw in the previous round was very strong, hard to crack, and it took a hero mech explosion from Slipchip to break the defense. Will they be able to do it again?
Well, they have the proof there. They've done it before. They can do it again. And looking at Don and his movements, he's really wanting to be the taxi. They're looking to be extremely aggressive, and that TNT going off in the spawn from Zip has been a indicator to the attackers that there is going to be a lot of damage over time. There is going to be a lot of fire, and you are going to have to navigate that accordingly. And Soggy going down is not going to help in the least.
Yeah, trying to dip and dart through some of those corridors, landed on a trap which was set up earlier by Hwoarang and managed to get cleaned up before anything gets started. So nice start there on defense for the side of Paradigm Shift. Just bleeding out a little bit of extra time, forcing a little bit of extra pressure onto this New Era lineup. Lush is on the back line, trying to get the hack onto Mighty Boy, but does fly out before they take any more damage. Lush is going to get cleaned up. Hwoarang doing a decent amount of work on defense here, cleaning out those pesky DPS targets from the side of New Era as the...
Oh no, Soggy.
Yet again, Soggy getting cleaned up. That is going to stall out this offense even more, and they're starting to run out of time here, Cyber.
Worst part there for Soggy, he blinked straight into the trajectory of that proximity mine, and bang! He blew up post-haste. And now New Era, they're starting to not have time as a friend. They're down to 1 minute and 15, and they are playing short-handed once again with Penny added to the frag total. and Slim Jim actually being ejected by Ho Chi Lee. So if there were any indications of an attack from New Era, they're going to have to basically dissolve anything to do with that and realize this might be their last stand.
Yeah, it's looking really rough for them. They're not really getting much in the way of ultimate charge slip. Not even at 50%, and we're talking about how that one needs to be the big key engagement, trying to blow apart that defense. Here comes the engagement though. Bob is going to be put on defense. It's going to be a good, useful tool as Penny is going to be able to get onto the back line. They're just trading 1-for-1, but the defense is holding quite strong. The defense does end up losing their Mercy, which is a very key target. The Supercharger is being dropped by New on that Orisa, and the amplification matrix as well. A good MP engagement, but will it be enough? They need to be able to get onto the point. There's 20 seconds left on the clock for the side of New Era. They need to be able to get onto the point. They need to start getting progress going. It takes down the Immortality field. It's looking a little bit iffy here. Here comes the Riptide. Can it get that big impact play? Is Boring is going to get cleaned out. Penny on that backline. Here comes the tire. Does take down Don. Will they be able to get onto the point as the defense is set up, but they don't really have anyone else around them, as it looks like New Era, with their backs against the wall, really just into overtime, finally managed to get the win for themselves.
That'll add an extra 30 seconds, and now New Era have done one part. They've got themselves part of a win condition, barring the same progress happening when the halves change. They have 3 points now as opposed to 2. If they would have at least been happy with the third, but getting the full cap would be even better. But that will bank on the defense holding up to snuff after the change. And speaking of change, it looks like a little bit of the complexion has changed for Paradigm Shift, as the side of New Era is slowly starting to file into the point, and we are down to the final fight. Overtime is alive and well.
Yeah, they are on the point. Here comes the engagement. Mech Explosion does go through. Doesn't get anyone, but throughout all of that, 2 members have gone down. 2 of the supports, and those are very key pickups, and they are just going to clean out this offense. They just didn't have the tools. All they had, because of all the switches, it was just a single nano boost, and it was not enough to help keep them alive against the onslaught of this Paradigm Shift defense. And now, sure, they got that extra point. That's going to help them out. So they still have an opportunity to win this map, but they need to be able to hold on to this first point.
And, well, at least the side of Paradigm Shift can breathe a tiny sigh of relief. They can at least try to draw, but that will bank on the defense for New Era to secure this map. And judging from what we saw before, they'd be hoping that they've done a little bit of retooling to their strategies, because it did not fare well the last go around.
Yeah, it got dismantled like almost immediately, the bunker setup. So it looks like they're just like, their thought is, this is not something that we're particularly accustomed to or all that well practiced on. Let's go back to what we know works for us, and that is a very aggressive style. They've got 2s across the board. We've got 2 supports. Special Kid is going to be doing a decent amount of work with that, with the Ana, Lush, with the Sombra, always needing those high impact plays. But on the offense, another very aggressive lineup coming Paradigm Shift. They need to get the win on this map to stay alive in this match.
And they'll definitely be wanting to, and you see Lush cloaked just right at the gates, just making their presence known, and copped the bullet right to the chest from Ziff. But the information that Lush had gathered will be extremely valuable to making this defense hold strong, and well, Lush will be a public enemy as soon as they're swatted. Might be an easier passage for the side of Paradigm Shift to move forward, but if they keep getting pinched in like this, it might not be all that fruitful for them, and a big Bionade will make things extremely difficult in terms of advancement, and Special Kid taking out Brock will make things only harder from here on out.
Yeah, we're talking about that Bionade. This kind of composition does not like it. When you get hit with one of those, the amount of healing that you want to be coming out of this of the Moiro just gets completely negated. All the healing from the Lucio and the Brigitte. When you get hit with the Bionade, everything just grinds to a halt. And they're going to keep on trying with the composition. it can work out incredibly well, but Special Kid has to be right on point with those bio nades onto the right targets so they can just pick them apart, clean them apart, and just make sure they can't get much done. As the EMP tried to come out but got stunned before it could really activate, so really good stun there, good presence of mind there from Hwoarang to negate that engagement from Lush, and this could be the opportunity for them to make their way towards the point. The fight is going reasonably well for them. They're trying to take down Special Kid, and they do get the Ana out of the way. They do end up losing Brock in the meantime because of Slip Dip on that back line as well. They're trying to make their way towards the point, but the fight is just trading back and forth, but it looks like New Era are starting to hold strong, trying to dig their heels in. The point is still going over the side of Paradigm Shift. The bomb is going to be dropped over. Doesn't end up getting into a good position. Soggy's going to get cleaned up. Hwoarang manages to clean her with that mace. And they're trying to stall out for as much time as possible. It's looking like a situation where they're not really going to be able to full hold here, but just trying to bleed as much time as possible before they get to point B.
Yes, and perhaps giving up that first third might not have bared as much positivity for the defense to reconvene as they might have thought. And a brief touch there from Soggy as the Tracer, and Ochin Lee will not only eat the pulse bomb but will take the agent with it. And now Paradigm Shift have at least guaranteed a draw, but a draw will not cut it. They have to win outright, and that is a simple condition, at least on paper by metrics. They have to get 1/3 on the point. Looking at the ultimate percentage, they can't do that, but a big EMP from Lush will put a stunt to that.
Yeah, but the brilliant positioning from Mighty Boy manages to get the sound barrier onto everyone who is impacted by that EMP, so they got completely negated yet again in a fashion. So they're able to keep their presence on the point, and now it's back into stalling territory. But it's not looking very good for them. But they are losing members left, right, and center, and Paradigm Shift negating 2 EMPs gets them this map.
Indeed, as I said, it would be a public enemy number one would be anybody who plays Sombra in those types of compositions, and that was a big focus on basically cutting them out of the fray, and then letting the rest fall into place. And you see this play the game from Soggy, and man, it's just fun to see Tracer again. And this basically got New Era this opening point in overtime. Wasn't enough for them though, as Paradigm Shift continue their run, but maybe only for a while. They're now down 3 maps to 1 because New Era had started with a 1-map advantage. And another wrinkle to this current state of affairs, because New Era lost the last map, they have the power to choose the next battleground, and we choose Junkertown as our next map and potentially final map, because New Era is still on match point.
Yeah, it is just very rough for Paradigm Shift, as you were mentioning. It is going to be the choice of New Era for the remainder of this series. If it goes all the way, it's always going to be rough. I mean, we saw Paradigm Shift play on this map before and how powerful they were on it with those bunker setups. New Era, their bunkers have looked pretty shaky. Their setup hasn't been as watertight. So it's a reasonable opportunity for Paradigm Shift to get some advantages here, but New Era have looked very good throughout this entire series, so I'm really not sure where this one is going to go.
Who knows? And it looks like we've had the map chosen, and now we have had the sides chosen, and Mighty Boy has said we want to defend, and that is exactly what will happen. So ready calls will go in, and the run will continue. Paradigm Shift will be in the red, New Era will be in the blue ever still. And can Paradigm Shift keep their run going, or will Junkertown be their final map in their Open Division run?
Yeah, it's very tense situation there for both sides. You're so close to locking out your opponent, so close to just finishing this whole series off. No more opportunities for your opponents. But on the other side, your back's against the wall. Every single interaction is becoming very important. the slightest things can really dictate a shift in pace and momentum, and we've seen so many times on this map over the past couple of months just how much momentum can really carry through it.
It is true, and momentum can actually change on a dime in this game. And for a little bit of clarification, because of complications with the host of the game, the names are unable to be changed. There is a brief pause going on, and at least at the moment, Paradigm Shift will be in the blue, and in the red there will be the side of New Era. But we'll try and get this sorted as quick as we can.
Yeah, we want to be able to make sure that everyone is aware which team is on which color, and don't want to get confused, because I have been very much prone to getting names confused and which player plays for which team and all that kind of stuff. So we are going to just start things off. Hopefully we do just remember who is on which, but as you mentioned, it is going to be New Era on attack first. Let's see how far they can get through this and what kind of start they're going to be running with, because it looks like so far we've got some bunkers starting to get set up.
I'd say yo ho ho, we are going to be doing a lot of plundering on the side of Paradigm Shift. Just judging from the Mercy, the Orisa, the Bastion being the main cannon. We'll be seeing a pirate ship coming out from Paradigm Shift, or Paradigm Ship, maybe.
Isn't it New Era?
Oh, it's New Era.
Yeah,
I knew
I
it
literally just said
again.
We don't want this to happen, and then it happened.
And then it happened. You are a bad omen, Mr. Phoenix, I swear. I knew it had happened to one of us, and it would just happen to be me, and ow, Soggy, no thanks. You are down and out, and Harang has gotten the better of the first exchange.
Yeah, nice opening kill. Does stall out any kind of momentum that they were trying to get set up, as we do have essentially the bunker set up right outside their own front door. They do make their way back on towards the point, trying to really get some momentum rolling, but without, well, they're starting to make their way through. Soggy on the back line does manage to clean out Ziff. They do get the return kill, but it's just going to allow this payload to keep on moving. They're not able to stop it because they were so preoccupied with that back line. Good kill there for Poirang, but yet again, trading kills back and forth. It's just essentially the name of the game. A good hook does go down to the special kid. They clean them up right away, but each and every time that someone gets killed, it's at the expense of someone else. But because of the chaotic nature of these fights so far, this payload has just continued to roll on through, with Lush and Pennies just glued to the point. That is going to be the first point without too much of a contest.
No, New Era are basically here to stay, and if you hear that Gatling gun from Basher go off when he's in turret mode, you best either hide or figure out a way to break him down, and we might actually see a attempt in that, with Horang actually having the Dragon Strike at the ready and has done the recon and has decided to move away and down towards the payload itself. It has definitely forced everybody to sort of disperse on the attacking side, but that is only briefly, given Soggy and Special Kid have just melted the defense for the time being.
Yeah, it seemed like the front line of Paradigm Shift, they went a little bit too far. The rest of the team was not around to help out. And with the defensive ultimates coming in really nicely there for New Era, they're able to clean them up and keep this payload rolling. And they still have some good ultimates to work with. They do have the whole hog, which can just give themselves some space to work with. Lush is going to be set up away from the cart, wanted to have as many views over any potential entry points. They're going to be able to de-mech the Diva before it gets started. And now it's going to be a bit of an awkward situation. Special Kid is going to start running through with that whole hog.
Oh, Lush.
And they are just going to start mowing through this defense.
There was an old show that I used to watch where there was a similar gun to what Bastion uses, and tried to use it to cut down those twigs and little trees. That's exactly what Lush did. He turned into a buzzsaw and cut whatever Paradigm Shift threw at them, just cut them in half and stopped them from advancing. And well, speaking of advancing, we have 5 minutes for this Paradigm Shift attack to keep going, and with only one on the cart, this makeshift bunker just moving from point to point to point. This could essentially smother whatever defense Paradigm Shift has before it even gets going.
This is one thing I really like about, well, this is the style that I really like from this bunker. Don't necessarily get set up on the point because you're just a moving target that is very easily to get preyed upon, but Lush is just going to just blast people into the next century with that tank formation. The defense try to get aggressive, run straight into a tank cannon, and that is not where you want to be. But now they do finally get themselves set up on the point, and it is going to be a bit of an awkward situation on defense because they need to run through these sightlines that this Bastion is just very ready for. Won't have the tank yet again, but still going to be doing a decent amount of work, just shredding through all of those defenses. Here comes the mech explosion, but got dragged in by that Roadhog. Isn't going to cost the team too much. Shield and all the tools set up to help out this Bastion. Just feel free to left click for days. They do manage to take down one, takes down another, as Soggy is going to be on that back line cleaning up anyone trying to hide away in those crevasses, and just it's so straightforward for this Bastion. Just set yourself up, left click for days, set yourself up with a tank, clean up the rest of the fight, and that is going to be 3 points rather convincingly there for New Era.
Oh man, if Lush wanted to be a character on Secret of Monkey Island, he definitely could have. That was a strong performance from him. He basically just looked at all the targets and just said, yeah, click, 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 and just let it rip. And, well, sadly for Paradigm Shift, they couldn't even come close to solving it once it fell into place.
And that's one of the things with that style of composition, bunker strategy, pirate ship, whatever you want to call it. Once it gets rolling, it is so hard to regain momentum or just set your heels in at any stage. You need to be able to dismantle it, and they just were not able to at any, as you mentioned, they didn't have the answers for it.
Well, now the side of Paradigm Shift, who is in the blue, despite what the in-game UI will say, they are on their last life, and Horang is literally their last Bastion for now. And just as I say, just as I make that metaphor, he changes. I'm not having a good run with those, but at any rate, maybe that might be a moment for me to stop doing them. Anyway, Brock will really have to pay off huge here, being the Baptiste in a lot of these compositions, especially this one that will be made. He will be basically what holds this entire team together. He and Mighty Boy being the support line will have to be basically just be the rock that this entire attack sits on, and it looks like New Era know that they have this in the bag and really want to put an exclamation point on this. They're extremely far forward and really want to lay it on thick.
Yeah, and Soggy up on that building did end up using emotes just to get that third-person view to get a bit of an idea of where the attack is coming through, or which of the multiple entrants or exits of the spawn they're going to be making their way. But even though they're Paradigm Shift, they're making their way all the way around. Payload still stalled out right at the very start, so they're going to have to get there at some point, but they want to be able to dismantle this setup. Lush gets taken down as Hwoarang, as you mentioned, is going to be the linchpin for this composition. Manages to pick out a couple of them. The resurrection does come through for both sides, but it's just trading kills back and forth. And it's looking reasonably okay for this side of Paradigm Shift, but it's still a long and grinding fight. They need to be able to get back to that point because they need to be able to push it all 3 points if they want to stay alive.
Yeah, so they really need to get things moving on the side of Paradigm Shift, and that is the calls to arms and the tank form from Lush. Is really wanting to lay the boom down like it did before. Maybe not so much. Horang has actually taken out one of Lush's compatriots, and Slim Jim has been ejected and run over by Hochi Lee. So it looks like New Era and their defense will be a little bit frazzled for now.
Yeah, they are going to have to try and reset up, which is going to be very difficult as on the offense, Hwoarang is going to be stationary on that point. It's actually going to move around a good bomb, but doesn't actually get cleaned up thanks to the immortality field. Keeps them alive. That plus one was going to be a very huge play coming out of Soggy, but ends up getting negated. So they are just going to keep on moving their way through as Hwoarang is going to set up in that corridor. The bomb goes through. I was actually managed to pick up Hwoarang. Nice kill there. They're trying to get the resurrection immediately. They want to keep the progress going. As they're just going to shove all the way through past the first point towards the streets just so they can get some high ground advantage.
And perhaps that is the big deciding factor in this next run. And it looks like they've traded places in terms of who is meant to go where. And there's Hwoarang letting the charge sting sound and is going to tank form. And not a lot of damage exchanged from the attacker paradigm shift. So not really working out as tight-knit as they would have liked, but it looks like the side of New Era is starting to battle back.
Yeah, a lot of Ultimates invested just to try and get that play to work out. Didn't really work. As they are going to be sending in the bomb. One gets taken down. It's going to be Special Kid. This is the trading back and forth. With Mighty Boy going down, that's the resurrection that's not going to be on the field. So nicely done there. But can they stall out? I completely shooken up on which one's defense and which one's offense because of where their positioning is. But it is eventually going to go over to the side of Paradigm Shift. They clean up the rest of the fight. Soak is going to be a bit of a nuisance, but it's not going to be enough. As they are going to get cleaned up eventually, and Paradigm Shift are going to keep this payload rolling, but they have bled out a lot of time. It's just over 30 seconds left on the clock, and they have to make it all the way through 3 points here.
Yes, and don't forget there are a couple of points where New Era could definitely get set up after the gate drops, after the payload rolls through. And looks like Slim Jim and Ho Chi Lee are getting into a bit of a tiff and a bit of an exchange in the Battle of the Divas. So despite the first checkpoint going to the side of Paradigm Shift, they have a tall mountain to climb, and they're really wanting to climb it now with a lot of the odds used, but it looks like Lush is putting a full stop to it with a frightening aplomb.
Yeah, and they are able to clean out Soggy on that back line. Nicely done there from Ziff, but they're just grinding through a lot of the shields, a lot of the utility, a lot of the tools coming through as tanks are coming through. We are going into World of Tanks here as Lush and Hwoarang are going head to head. Lush just managed to take down Brock, so that's the immortality field out of the way, so they won't have to worry about that. Slip is going to be standing on the point just to make sure that it's not going to get stalled out, as in comes the Valkyrie from Don to keep everyone nice and healthy. But the whole hog is going to start grinding its way through a lot of that front line. Nicely done here on the offense. But as long as they're bleeding out time, I feel as though New Era are going to be pretty happy with their performance so far, because once we get into that third section of this stage, should we get even into that third section of the stage, you don't have a lot of opportunities to work with. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a rough grind towards that final phase.
Yeah, it looks like the side of Paradigm Shifter have at least refound their bearings, but it was a little bit scrappy and almost completely undone by the fact that Lush was stuck in that perched position above the payload for such a long time. But now the side of New Era have realized that that particular setup has passed its usability state and have decided to completely change over.
Yeah, making a few adaptations, especially coming into the more close quarters situation, as this offense is trying to be a little bit more cautious with their approach, realizing that there's probably a setup somewhere. A good hook does go down onto Slip, gets out of there without too much damage being dealt. Hwoarang is going to do a decent amount of damage to Penny's shield. It does end up backing away, as they need to be very careful. A lot of pressure being utilized. Mighty Boy is going to use the Valkyrie so they can start making their way through this choke point, but the door does close and that completely splits them off, as New is going to get taken out, and they're not going to be able to get anything out of that mech explosion either. So really unfortunate timing there for the offense.
Oh, and I bet Hwoarang would have just had to shake his head after that. He was set up in the turret position, had a good sight line, a good set of frags to potentially pot, but then the pesky door had to go up and raise everybody, and a big Bionade will prevent any type of healing going down to any of the attackers. But Ocean League did blow one away, and at least things are going a little bit back and forth, and it was almost looking like a really dark situation for the side of Paradigm Shift after Bionade and the big threat of the big wall of meat that is on display on the defense, but looks like they've come out better for it, and even better still, they have a lot of ultimates, especially Hwoarang in the tank configuration could be extremely huge if used correctly.
Yeah, it's going to be that big key figure, and I have to give a lot of credit to Brock on the Baptiste getting those immortality fields down at the right times just to keep the rest of the team alive. You were talking about how the the Bionade really helped in that fight as the hook does go down to Penny and the rest of the team is left high and dry. As far as the supercharger does get dropped, as does the tank formation. Let's see how much damage can be dealt with this play. So far, not much. They are at least forcing them back and giving themselves some room to work with. Hwoarang does end up running out of the tank formation. This is going to get set up on that high ground and just shred through Penny Shield with the help of the damage boost from Mighty Boy. Here comes the amplification matrix trying to just shove away. They're forced into this awkward corner, but they do end up stalling out the point a little bit more as they do get a shatter down onto Ziff. The Bionade goes down onto him well, but the immortality field is going to help keep him alive for a little bit longer, but they're starting to lose members. They need to be able to get onto the point, or else they are just going to end up losing this map and the match. But they are starting to lose members left, right, and center. Mighty Boy is going to get taken down. There's no one else really left. It's just New versus the world. He's going to get bumped away. There is no one left around, and that is going to be it. They tried all they could, but New Era is going to be your winners. Yes, it says P Shift on the screen, but because of the name switch, it is actually New Era who takes the map and takes the series.
And a strong showing, and it is off of plays like this, as we will amply demonstrate. This is from the attack. Look, double fragged straight away with the big shot of the tank configuration, and that was two big pieces taken out of the fight. And well, aside from the one bump in the road in the set, it was basically all New Era all the way. And all the way they go into the next step of the path. They move on to the trials.
Yeah, both of these teams do end up qualifying for that, but it's a lot of bragging rights, and you definitely want to be the one going into trials as the winner of Open Division. It looks much better on the resume as well. So really nicely done there from New Era, claiming the win. Essentially, Paradigm Shift being the only team to really challenge them throughout this, the only team to take maps off them throughout this playoff run. Paradigm Shift, have to give a lot of credit to them. Sleepship, even in the chat, was saying, gives them commendations for just how long they've been playing over the course of today. This is their 4th series, so they have to be absolutely exhausted. So really solid showing from them, but in the end, it just wasn't enough for them to overcome New Era.
Not at all, but that is not to say that Paradigm Shift didn't put up a fight. They definitely did. And although the score will indicate that it was 3-1, there was a map advantage for the side of New Era. They started with 1 point ahead, and it wasn't without a lot of pressure being put on from Paradigm Shift. There are a lot of glances of brilliance throughout all of the sets that we've seen today, but New Era beat them once 3-1, and basically beat them
again,
a second time. Well, technically 3-1, but 4-1 on the score sheet because of the map advantage. But your Open Division winners for this season in 2019 will be New Era, and they could definitely put that metaphorical trophy on the mantle, like you said. It's a big bragging right in the grand scheme.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see how these teams do end up going when we come into trials, because we've seen a lot of these players play for quite a while, and they are very strong teams, and I'm very interested in seeing how they go when, as you mentioned, it's the next step. It's going to be tougher competition each and every time they take that extra step forward. But both of these teams, you can see where the strengths are. We've seen Paradigm Shift, how good they are when it comes to playing that very solid, cohesive unit. New Era, they just had those big highlight plays that really just shut down teams with, and very excited to see how they go against some of the tougher opposition.
And there's definitely going to be a lot of tough opposition in trials. There's a lot of the teams that perhaps didn't have as good of a run in contenders throughout trials, or we'll wait and see how the draw figures itself out as we move into the next phase of the path. But that will be where we will conclude our coverage for the evening. And well, Geo Phoenix, It's been a pleasure as always to drink in a lot of good Overwatch. And do you have any parting words before we shut things down for the night?
Not too many. I mean, it was just a great day of games, and it's always fun casting with you, Cyberwaste. Just remember, we are on Twitter. I am at GeoPhoenix. He is at I am Cyberwaste.
Yes.
Pretty much unified branding anywhere. Twitter, Twitch, etc., all of the above. So you can follow us all there. Also, thanks to Rightline, who has been helping out with the production. Thank you to CappingTV for hosting this whole thing. Thank you, everyone who has been watching, for sticking with us throughout the day. And we'll see you all next time.
And good night, happy fragging, and be the best hero you can be.